Hello, my she-devils and demons. This is Nurse Hatchet, she-wolf of the Wolf Pack.
Bloodbath Theater Tales with your host, King of Splatterpunk, horror author William Pattison, and the horror sex symbol Christopher Hyland.
Come one, come all, to the greatest show on earth. Welcome to Bloodbath Theater Tales and Ringmaster William Pattison, King of Splatterpunk, and author of the Camp Crystal Lake novels. Unfortunately, Christopher Hyland couldn't make it tonight. He will be missed, and I will have to discuss the story all by myself. Oh well. Anyways, tonight we have an exciting show for you. We are going into the world of Carnival Freaks with Tod Robbins' short story Spurs. So without any further ado, let's check that out. I'll be back after the audio story to discuss this piece. Enjoy.
Spurs by Tod Robbins. 1. Jacques Courbet was a romanticist. He measured only 28 inches from the soles of his diminutive feet to the crown of his head, but there were times as he rode into the arena on his gallant charger, Saint Eustache, when he felt himself a doughty knight of old about to do battle for his lady. What matter that Saint Eustache was not a gallant charger except in his master's imagination, not even a pony, indeed, but a large dog of a nondescript breed with a long snout and upstanding aura of a wolf? What matter that M. Courbet's entrance was invariably greeted with shouts of derisive laughter and bombardments of banana skins and orange peel? What matter that he had no lady, and that his daring deeds were severely curtailed to a mimicry of the bareback riders who preceded him? What mattered all these things to the tiny man who lived in dreams, and who resolutely closed his shoe-button eyes to the drab realities of life? The dwarf had no friends among the other freaks in Copo's circus. They considered him ill-tempered and egotistical, and he loathed them for their acceptance of things as they were. Imagination was the armor that protected him from the curious glances of a cruel, gaping world, from the stinging lash of ridicule, from the bombardments of banana skins and orange peel. Without it he must have shriveled up and died. But those others, they had no armor except their own thick hides. The door that opened on the kingdom of imagination was closed and locked to them. And although they did not wish to open this door, although they did not miss what lay beyond it, they resented and mistrusted anyone who possessed the key. Now it came about, after many humiliating performances in the arena, made palatable only by dreams, that love entered the circus tent and beckoned commandingly to M. Jacques Courbet. In an instant the dwarf was engulfed in a sea of wild, tumultuous passion. Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie was a daring bareback rider. It made M. Jacques Courbet's tiny heart stand still to see her that first night of her appearance in the arena, performing brilliantly on the broad back of her aged mare Sappho. A tall, blonde woman of the Amazon type. She had round eyes of baby blue which held no spark of her avaricious peasant's soul, carmine lips and cheeks, large white teeth which flashed continually in a smile, and hands which, when doubled up, were nearly the size of the dwarf's head. Her partner in the act was Simon Lefleur, the Romeo of the circus tent, a swarthy, Herculean young man with bold black eyes and hair that glistened with grease, like the back of Solon, the trained seal. From the first performance, M. Jacques Courbet loved Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie. All his tiny body was shaken with longing for her. Her buxom charms, so generously revealed in tights and spangles, made him flush and cast down his eyes. The familiarities allowed to Simon Lefleur, the bodily acrobatic contacts of the two performers, made the dwarf's blood boil. Mounted on St. Eustache, awaiting his turn at the entrance, he would grind his teeth in impotent rage to see Simon circling round and round the ring, standing proudly on the back of Sappho and holding Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie in an ecstatic embrace while she kicked one shapely, bespangled leg skyward. "Ah, the dog!" M. Jacques Courbet would mutter. "Some day I shall teach this hulking stable boy his place. Ma foi, I will clip his ears for him." St. Eustache did not share his master's admiration for Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie. St. Eustache did not share his master's admiration for Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie. From the first he evinced his hearty detestation of her by low growls and a ferocious display of long, sharp fangs. It was little consolation for the dwarf to know that St. Eustache showed still more marked signs of rage when Simon Lefleur approached him. It pined M. Jacques Courbet to think that his gallant charger, his sole companion, his bedfellow, should not also love and admire the splendid giantess who each night risked life and limb before the awed populace. Often when they were alone together he would chide St. Eustache on his churlishness. "Ah, you devil of a dog," the dwarf would cry, "why must you always growl and show your ugly teeth when the lovely Jeanne-Marie condescends to notice you? Have you no feelings under your tough hide? Cur, she is an angel and you snarl at her. Do you not remember how I found you, starving puppy, in the Paris gutter? And now you must threaten the hand of my princess? So this is your gratitude, great hairy pig?" M. Jacques Courbet had one living relative, not a dwarf like himself, but a fine figure of a man, a prosperous farmer living just outside the town of Robbin. The elder Courbet had never married, and so one day when he was found dead from heart failure, his tiny nephew, for whom it must be conversion, fell heir to a comfortable property. When the tidings were brought to him, the dwarf threw both arms about the shaggy neck of St. Eustache and cried out, "Ah, now we can retire, marry, and settle down, old friend. I am worth many times my weight in gold." That evening, as Mademoiselle Jeanne Marie was changing her gaudy costume after the performance, a light tap sounded on the door. "Enter!" she called, believing it to be Simon Le Fleur, who had promised to take her that evening to the sign of the Wild Boar for a glass of wine to wash the sawdust out of her throat. "Enter, mon chéri." The door swung slowly open, and in stepped M. Jacques Courbet, very proud and upright, in the silks and laces of a courtier, with a tiny gold-hilted sword swinging at his hip. Up he came, his shoe-button eyes all a-glitter to see the more than partially revealed charms of his robust lady. Up he came to within a yard of where she sat, and down on one knee he went and pressed his lips to her red slippered foot. "Oh, most beautiful and daring lady," he cried, in a voice as shrill as a pin scratching on a window-pane, "will you not take mercy on the unfortunate Jacques Courbet? He is hungry for your smiles. He is starving for your lips. All night long he tosses on his couch and dreams of Jean-Marie." "What play-acting is this, my brave little fellow?" she asked, bending down with the smile of an ogress. "Has Simon Le Fleur sent you to tease me?" "May the Black Plague have Simon," the dwarf cried, his eyes seeming to flash blue sparks. "I am not play-acting. It is only too true that I love you, mademoiselle, that I wish to make you my lady. And now that I have a fortune, not that—" He broke off suddenly, and his face resembled a withered apple. "What is this, mademoiselle?" he said in the low, droning tone of a hornet about to sting. "Do you laugh at my love? I warn you, mademoiselle, do not laugh at Jacques Courbet." Mademoiselle Jean-Marie's large, florid face had turned purple from suppressed merriment. Her lips twitched at the corners. It was all she could do not to burst out into a roar of laughter. Why, this ridiculous little mannequin was serious in his love-making. This pocket-sized edition of a courtier was proposing marriage to her. He, this splinter of a fellow, wished to make her his wife. Why, she could carry him about on her shoulder like a trained marmoset. What a joke this was, what a colossal, corset-creaking joke. Wait till she told Simon Le Fleur. She could fairly see him throw back his sleek head, open his mouth to its widest dimensions, and shake with silent laughter. But she must not laugh, not now. First she must listen to everything the dwarf had to say. Everything the dwarf had to say, draw all the sweetness of this bonbon of humor before she crushed it under the heel of ridicule. "I am not laughing," she managed to say. "You have taken me by surprise. I never thought, I never even guessed." "That is well, mademoiselle," the dwarf broke in. "I do not tolerate laughter. In the arena I am paid to make laughter, but these others pay to laugh at me. I always make people pay to laugh at me." "But do I understand you aright, M. Courbet? Are you proposing an honorable marriage?" The dwarf rested his hand on his heart and bowed. "Yes, mademoiselle, an honorable, and the wherewithal to keep the wolf from the door. A week ago my uncle died and left me a large estate. We shall have a servant to wait on our wants, a horse and carriage, food and wine of the best, and leisure to amuse ourselves. And you? Why, you will be a fine lady. I will clothe that beautiful big body of yours with silks and laces. You will be as happy, mademoiselle, as a cherry tree in June. You will be as happy, mademoiselle, as a cherry tree in June." The dark blood slowly receded from Mademoiselle Jean-Marie's full cheeks. Her lips no longer twitched at the corners. Her eyes had narrowed slightly. She had been a bareback rider for years, and she was weary of it. The life of the circus tent had lost its tinsel. She loved the dashing Simon Le Fleur, but she knew well enough that this Romeo in tights would never espouse a dowerless girl. The dwarf's words had woven themselves into a rich mental tapestry. She saw herself a proud lady ruling over a country estate, and later welcoming Simon Le Fleur with all the luxuries that were so near his heart. Simon would be overjoyed to marry into a country estate. These pygmies were a puny lot. They died young. She would do nothing to hasten the end of Jacques Courbet. No, she would be kindness itself to the poor little fellow, but on the other hand, she would not lose her beauty mourning for him. Nothing that you wish shall be withheld from you as long as you love me, mademoiselle, the dwarf continued. Your answer? Mademoiselle Jeanne-Marie bent forward, and with a single movement of her powerful arms raised M. Jacques Courbet and placed him on her knee. For an ecstatic instant she held him thus, as if he were a large French doll, with his tiny sword cocked coquettishly out behind. Then she planted on his cheek a huge kiss that covered his entire face from chin to brow. "I am yours," she murmured, pressing him to her ample bosom. "From the first I loved you, M. Jacques Courbet." 2. The wedding of Mademoiselle Jeanne-Marie was celebrated in the town of Roubaix, where Coupeau's circus had taken up its temporary quarters. Following the ceremony, a feast was served in one of the tents, which was attended by a whole galaxy of celebrities. The bridegroom, his dark little face flushed with happiness and wine, sat at the head of the board. His chin was just above the tablecloth, so that his head looked like a large orange that had rolled off the fruit dish. Immediately beneath his dangling feet, Saint Eustache, who had more than once evinced by deep growls his disapproval of the proceedings, now worried a bone with quick, sly glances from time to time at the plump legs of his new mistress. Papa Coupeau was on the dwarf's right, his large round face as red and benevolent as a harvest moon. Next to him sat Griffo, the giraffe boy, who was covered with spots and whose neck was so long that he looked down on all the rest, including M. Hercule Hippo, the giant. The rest of the company included Mademoiselle Lupa, who had sharp white teeth of an incredible length, and who growled when she tried to talk. The tiresome M. Jagongle, who insisted on juggling fruit, plates and knives, although the whole company was heartily sick of his tricks. Mademoiselle Sampson, with her trained boa constrictors coiled about her neck and peeping out timidly one above each ear. Simon Le Fleur, and a score of others. The bareback rider had laughed silently and almost continually ever since Jean-Marie had told him of her engagement. Now he sat next to her in his crimson tights. His black hair was brushed back from his forehead, and so glistened with grease that it reflected the lights overhead like a burnished helmet. From time to time he tossed off a brimming goblet of Burgundy, nudged the bride in the ribs with his elbow, and threw back his sleek head in another silent outburst of laughter. "And you are sure you will not forget me, Simon?" she whispered. "It may be some time before I can get the little ape's money." "Forget you, Jean?" he muttered. "By all the dancing devils in Champagne, never! I will wait as patiently as Job till you have fed that mouse some poisoned cheese. But what will you do with him in the meantime, Jean? You must allow him some liberties. I grind my teeth to think of you in his arms." The bride smiled and regarded her diminutive husband with an appraising glance. What an atom of a man! And yet life might linger in his bones for a long time to come. M. Jacques Courbet had allowed himself only one glass of wine, and yet he was far gone in intoxication. His tiny face was suffused with blood, and he stared at Simon Le Fleur belligerently. Did he suspect the truth? "Your husband is flushed with wine," the bareback rider whispered. "Ma foi, madame, later he may knock you about. Possibly he is a dangerous fellow in his cups. Should he maltreat you, Jean, do you not forget that you have a protector in Simon Le Fleur?" "You clown!" Jean-Marie rolled her large eyes roguishly and laid her hand for an instant on the bareback rider's knee. "Simon, I could crack his skull between my finger and thumb like a hickory nut." She paused to illustrate her example, and then added reflectively, "And perhaps I shall do that very thing if he attempts any familiarities." "Ugh! The little ape turns my stomach." By now the wedding guests were beginning to show the effects of their potations. This was especially marked in the case of M. Jacques Courbet's associates in the sideshow. Griffo, the giraffe boy, had closed his large brown eyes and was swaying his small head languidly above the assembly, while a slightly supercilious expression drew his lips down at the corners. M. Hercule Hippo, swollen out by his libations to even more colossal proportions, was repeating over and over, quote, "I tell you I am not like other men. When I walk, the earth trembles." Mademoiselle Lupa, her hairy upper lip lifted above her long white teeth, was gnawing at a bone, growling unintelligible phrases to herself and shooting savage, suspicious glances at her companions. M. Gijongle's hands had grown unsteady, and as he insisted on juggling the knives and plates of each new course, broken bits of crockery littered the floor. Mademoiselle Samson, uncoiling her necklace of baby boa constrictors, was feeding them lumps of sugar soaked in rum. M. Jacques Courbet had finished his second glass of wine and was surveying the whispering Simon Lefleur through narrowed eyes. There can be no genial companionship among great egotists who have drunk too much. Each one of these human oddities thought that he or she was responsible for the crowds that daily gathered at Copo's circus. So now, heated with the good burgundy, they were not slow in asserting themselves. Their separate egos rattled angrily together like so many pebbles in a bag. Here was gunpowder which needed only a spark. "I am a very big man," M. Hercule Hippo said sleepily. "Women love me. The pretty little creatures leave their pygmy husbands so that they may come and stare at Hercule Hippo of Copo's circus. Ha! And when they return home, they laugh at other men always. 'You may kiss me again when you grow up,' they tell their sweethearts." "Fat bullock, here is one woman who has no love for you," cried Mademoiselle Lupa, glaring sideways at the giant over her bone. "That great carcass of yours is only so much food gone to waste. You have cheated the butcher, my friend. Fool! Women do not come to see you. As well might they stare at the cattle being let through the street." "Ah, no, they come from far and near to see one of their own sex, who is not a cat." "Quite right," cried Papa Copo in a conciliatory tone, smiling and rubbing his hands together. "Not a cat, mademoiselle, but a wolf. Ah, you have a sense of humor." "How droll!" "I have a sense of humor," Mademoiselle Lupa agreed, returning to her bone, "and also sharp teeth. Let the erring hand not stray too near." "You, M. Hippo, and Mademoiselle Lupa are both wrong," said a voice which seemed to come from the roof. "Surely it is none other than me whom the people come to stare at." All raised their eyes to the supercilious face of Griffo, the giraffe boy, which swayed slowly from side to side on its long pipe-stem neck. It was he who had spoken, although his eyes were still closed. "Of all the colossal impediments," cried the matronly Mademoiselle Samson, "as if my little dears had nothing to say on the subject." She picked up the two baby boa constrictors which lay in drunken slumber on her lap and shook them like whips at the wedding guests. Papa Copo knows only too well that it is on account of these little charmers, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, that the sideshow is so well attended. The circus owner, thus directly appealed to, frowned in perplexity. He felt himself in a quandary. These freaks of his were difficult to handle. Why had he been fool enough to come to M. Jacques Courbet's wedding feast? Whatever he said would be used against him. As Papa Copo hesitated, his round red face wreathed in ingratiating smiles. The long-deferred spark suddenly alighted in the powder. It all came about on account of the carelessness of M. Jongle, who had become engrossed in the conversation and wished to put in a word for himself. Absent-mindedly juggling 2 heavy plates and a spoon, he said in a petulant voice, "You all appear to forget me." Scarcely were the words out of his mouth when one of the heavy plates descended with a crash on the thick skull of Im Hippo, and Im Jejongel was instantly remembered. Indeed, he was more than remembered, for the giant, already irritated to the boiling point by Mademoiselle Lupa's insults, at the new affront, struck out savagely past her and knocked the juggler head over heels under the table. Mademoiselle Lupa, always quick-tempered and especially so when her attention was focused on a juicy chicken bone, evidently considered her dinner companion's conduct far from decorous, and promptly inserted her sharp teeth in the offending hand that had administered the blow. Im Hippo, squealing from rage and pain like a wounded elephant, bounded to his feet, overturning the table. Pandemonium followed. Every freak's hands, teeth, feet were turned against the others. Above the shouts, screams, growls, and hisses of the combat, Papa Copo's voice could be heard bellowing for peace. "Ah, my children, this is no way to behave. Calm yourselves, I pray you. Mademoiselle Lupa, remember that you are a lady as well as a wolf." There is no doubt that Im Jacques Courbet would have suffered most in this undignified fracas, had it not been for Saint Eustache, who had stationed himself over his tiny master, and who now drove off all would-be assailants. As it was, Griffo, the unfortunate giraffe boy, was the most defenseless and therefore became the victim. His small round head swayed back and forth to blows like a punching bag. He was bitten by Mademoiselle Lupa, buffeted by Im Hippo, kicked by Im Jejongel, clawed by Mademoiselle Samson, and nearly strangled by both of the baby boa constrictors, which had wound themselves about his neck like hangman's nooses. Undoubtedly, he would have fallen a victim to circumstances had it not been for Simon Le Fleur, the bride, and half a dozen of her acrobatic friends, whom Papa Copo had implored to restore peace. Roaring with laughter, they sprang forward and tore the combatants apart. Im Jacques Courbet was found sitting grimly under a fold of tablecloth. He held a broken bottle of wine in one hand. The dwarf was very drunk and in a towering rage. As Simon Le Fleur approached with one of his silent laughs, Im Jacques Courbet hurled the bottle at his head. "Ah, the little wasp," the bareback rider cried, picking up the dwarf by his waistband. "Here is your fine husband, Jean. Take him away before he does me some mischief. Parbleu, he is a bloodthirsty fellow in his cups." The bride approached, her blonde face crimson from wine and laughter. Now that she was safely married to a country estate, she took no more pains to conceal her true feelings. "Oh la la!" she cried, seizing the struggling dwarf and holding him forcibly on her shoulder. "What a temper the little ape has! Well, we shall spank it out of him before long." "Let me down!" Im Jacques Courbet screamed in a paroxysm of fury. "You will regret this, madame. Let me down, I say." But the stalwart bride shook her head. "No, no, no, my little one," she laughed. "You cannot escape your wife so easily." "What, you would fly from my arms before the honeymoon?" "Let me down," he cried again. "Can't you see that they are laughing at me?" "And why should they not laugh, my little ape? Let them laugh if they will, but I will not put you down. No, I will carry you thus, perched on my shoulder, to the farm. It will set a precedent which brides of the future may find a certain difficulty in following." "But the farm is quite a distance from here, my Jean," said Simon Le Fleur. "You are strong as an ox, and he is only a marmoset. Still, I will wager a bottle of Burgundy that you set him down by the roadside." "Done, Simon!" the bride cried, with a flash of her strong white teeth. "You shall lose your wager, for I swear that I could carry my little ape from one end of France to the other." Im Jacques Courbet no longer struggled. He now sat bolt upright on his bride's broad shoulder. From the flaming peaks of blind passion, he had fallen into abyss of cold fury. His love was dead, but some quite alien emotion was rearing an evil head from its ashes. "Come," cried the bride suddenly, "I am off. Do you and the others, Simon, follow to see me win my wager." They all trooped out of the tent. A full moon rode the heavens and showed the road, lying as white and straight through the meadows as the parting in Simon Le Fleur's black, oily hair. The bride, still holding the diminutive bridegroom on her shoulder, burst out into song as she strode forward. The wedding guests followed. Some walked none too steadily. Griffo, the giraffe boy, staggered pitifully on his long, thin legs. Papa Copo alone remained behind. "What a strange world," he muttered, standing in the tent door and following them with his round blue eyes. "Ah, these children of mine are difficult at times. Very difficult." 3. A year had rolled by since the marriage of Mademoiselle Jean-Marie and M. Jacques Courbet. Copo's circus had once more taken up its quarters in the town of Roubaix. For more than a week, the country people for miles around had flocked to the sideshow to get a peep at Griffo, the giraffe boy, M. Hercule Hippo, the giant, Mademoiselle Lupa, the wolf lady, Mademoiselle Samson with her baby boa constrictors, and M. Jongle, the famous juggler. Each was still firmly convinced that he or she alone was responsible for the popularity of the circus. Simon Le Fleur sat in his lodgings at the sign of the Wild Boar. He wore nothing but red tights. His powerful torso, stripped to the waist, glistened with oil. He was kneading his biceps tenderly with some strong-smelling fluid. Suddenly there came the sound of heavy, laborious footsteps on the stairs. Simon Le Fleur looked up. His rather gloomy expression lifted, giving place to the brilliant smile that had won for him the hearts of so many lady acrobats. "Ah, there is Marcel," he told himself, "or perhaps it is Rose, the English girl, or yet again little Francesca, although she walks more lightly. Well, no matter, whoever it is, I will welcome her." By now the lagging, heavy footfalls were in the hall, and a moment later they came to a halt outside the door. There was a timid knock. Simon Le Fleur's brilliant smile broadened. Perhaps some new admirer that needs encouragement, he told himself, but aloud he said, "Enter, mademoiselle." The door swung slowly open and revealed the visitor. She was a tall, gaunt woman dressed like a peasant. The wind had blown her hair into her eyes. Now she raised a large, toil-worn hand, brushed it back across her forehead, and looked long and attentively at the bareback rider. "Do you not remember me?" she said at length. 2 lines of perplexity appeared above Simon Le Fleur's Roman nose. He slowly shook his head. He, who had known so many women in his time, was now at a loss. Was it a fair question to ask a man who was no longer a boy and who had lived? Women change so in a brief time. Now this bag of bones might at one time have appeared desirable to him. Parbleu, fate was a conjurer. She waved her wand, and beautiful women were transformed into hogs, jewels into pebbles, silks and laces into hempen cords. The brave fellow who danced tonight at the prince's ball might tomorrow dance more lightly on the gallows tree. The thing was to live and die with a full belly, to digest all that one could. That was life. "You do not remember me," she said again. Simon Le Fleur once more shook his sleek black head. "I have a poor memory for faces, madame," he said politely. "It is my misfortune where there are such beautiful faces. It is my misfortune when there are such beautiful faces." "Ah, but you should have remembered, Simon," the woman cried, a sob rising in her throat. "We were very close together, you and I. Do you not remember Jean-Marie?" "Jean-Marie!" the bareback rider cried. "Jean-Marie, who married a marmoset in a country estate? Don't tell me, madame, that you—" He broke off and stared at her open-mouthed. His sharp black eyes wandered from the wisps of wet straggling hair down her gaunt person, till they rested at last on her thick cowhide boots, encrusted with layer on layer of mud from the countryside. "It is impossible," he said at last. "It is indeed Jean-Marie," the woman answered. "It is indeed Jean-Marie," the woman answered, "or what is left of her. Ah, Simon, what a life he has led me! I have been merely a beast of burden. There are no ignominities which he has not made me suffer." "To whom do you refer?" Simon Lefleur demanded. "Surely you cannot mean that pocket edition husband of yours, that dwarf Jacques Courbet." "Ah, but I do, Simon. Alas, he has broken me." "He? That toothpick of a man?" the bareback rider cried with one of his silent laughs. "Why, it is impossible. As you once said yourself, Jean, you could crack his skull between finger and thumb like a hickory nut." "So I thought once. Ah, but I did not know him then, Simon. Because he was small, I thought I could do with him as I liked. It seemed to me that I was marrying a mannequin. I will play Punch and Judy with this little fellow, I said to myself. Simon, you imagine my surprise when he began playing Punch and Judy with me. But I do not understand, Jean. Surely at any time you could have slapped him into obedience." "Perhaps," she assented wearily, "had it not been for St. Eustache. From the first that wolf dog of his hated me. If I so much as answered his master back, he would show his teeth. Had it not been for St. Eustache, from the first that wolf dog of his hated me. If I so much as answered his master back, he would show his teeth. Once at the beginning, when I raised my hand to cuff Jacques Courbet, he sprang at my throat and would have torn me limb from limb had the dwarf not called him off. I was a strong woman, but even then I was no match for a wolf." "There was poison, was there not?" Simon Lefleur suggested. "Ah, yes, I too thought of poison, but it was of no avail. St. Eustache would eat nothing that I gave him, and the dwarf forced me to taste first of all food that was placed before him and his dog. Unless I myself wished to die, there was no way of poisoning either of them." "My poor girl," the bareback rider said pityingly, "I begin to understand, but sit down and tell me everything. This is a revelation to me, after seeing you stalking homeward so triumphantly with your bridegroom on your shoulder. You must begin at the beginning." "It was just because I carried him thus on my shoulder that I have had to suffer so cruelly," she said, seating herself on the only other chair the room afforded. "He has never forgiven me the insult which he says I put upon him. Do you remember how I boasted that I could carry him from one end of France to the other?" "I remember. Well, Jean?" "Well, Simon, the little demon has figured out the exact distance in leagues. Each morning, rain or shine, we sully out of the house, he on my back, and the wolf dog at my heels, and I tramp along the dusty roads till my knees tremble beneath me from fatigue. If I so much as slacken my pace, if I falter, he goads me with cruel little golden spurs, while at the same time St. Eustache nips my ankles. When we return home, he strikes so many leagues of a score, which he says is the number of leagues from one end of France to the other. Not half that distance has been covered, and I am no longer a strong woman, Simon. Look at these shoes." She held up one of her feet for his inspection. The sole of the cowhide boot had been worn through. Simon Lefleur caught a glimpse of bruised flesh caked with the mire of the highway. "This is the third pair that I have had," she continued hoarsely. "Now he tells me that the price of shoe leather is too high, that I shall have to finish my pilgrimage barefooted." "But why do you put up with all of this, Jean?" Simon Lefleur asked angrily. "You, who have a carriage and a servant, should not walk at all." "At first there was a carriage and a servant," she said, wiping the tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. "But they did not last a week. He sent the servant about his business and sold the carriage at a nearby fair. Now there is no one but me to wait on him and his dog." "But the neighbors," Simon Lefleur persisted. "Surely you could appeal to them." "We have no neighbors. The farm is quite isolated. I would have run away many months ago, if I could have escaped unnoticed. But they keep a continual watch on me. Once I tried, but I hadn't traveled more than a league before the wolf dog was snapping at my ankles. He drove me back to the farm, and the following day I was compelled to carry the little fiend until I fell from sheer exhaustion." "But tonight you got away." "Yes," she said, and with a quick, frightened glance at the door. "Tonight I slipped out while they were both sleeping and came here to you. I know that you would protect me, Simon, because of what we have been to each other. Get Papa Copo to take me back to the circus, and I will work my fingers to the bone. Save me, Simon. Jean-Marie could no longer suppress her sobs. They rose in her throat, choking her, making her incapable of further speech. Calm yourself, Jean, Simon Lefleur told her soothingly. I will do what I can for you. I shall discuss the matter with Papa Copo tomorrow. Of course, you are no longer the woman that you were a year ago. You have aged since then, but perhaps our good Papa Copo could find you something to do. He broke off and eyed her intently. She had sat up in the chair. Her face, even under the coat of grime, had turned a sickly white. What troubles you, Jean? He asked a trifle breathlessly. Hush, she said with a finger to her lips. Listen. Simon Lefleur could hear nothing but the tapping of the rain on the roof and the sighing of the wind through the tree. An unusual silence seemed to pervade the sighing of the wild boar. Now don't you hear it? She cried with an inarticulate gasp. Simon, it is in the house. It is on the stairs. At last the bareback rider's less sensitive ears caught the sound his companion had heard a full minute before. It was a steady pit-pat on the stairs, hard to dissociate from the drop of the rain, from the eaves. But each instant it came nearer, grew more distinct. Oh, save me, Simon, save me, Jean-Marie cried, throwing herself at his feet and clasping him about his knees. Save me, it is Saint Eustache. Nonsense, woman, the bareback rider said angrily, but nevertheless he rose. There are other dogs in the world. On the second landing there is a blind fellow who owns a dog. Perhaps that is what you hear. No, it is Saint Eustache's step. My God, if you had lived with him a year, you would know it too. Close the door and lock it. That I will not, Simon Lefleur said contemptuously. Do you think I am frightened so easily? If it is the wolf dog, so much the worse for him. He will not be the first cur I have choked to death with these two hands. Pit-pat, pit-pat. It was on the second landing. Pit-pat, pit-pat. Now it was in the corridor and coming fast. Pit-pat. All at once it stopped. There was a moment's breathless silence, and then into the room trotted Saint Eustache. M. Jacques sat astride the dog's broad back, as he had so often done in the circus ring. He held a tiny drawn sword. His shoe-button eyes seemed to reflect its steady glitter. The dwarf brought the dog to a halt in the middle of the room, and took in at a single glance the prostrate figure of Jean-Marie. Saint Eustache, too, seemed to take silent note of it. The stiff hair on his back rose up. He showed his long white fangs hungrily, and his eyes glowed like two live coals. So I find you thus, madame, M. Jacques Courbet said at last. It is fortunate that I have a charger here who can scent out my enemies as well as hunt them down in the open. Without him, I might have had some difficulty in discovering you. Well, the little game is up. I find you with your lover. Simon Lefleur is not my lover, she sobbed. I have not seen him once since I married you until tonight. I swear it. Once is enough, the dwarf said grimly. The imprudent stable boy must be chastised. Oh, spare him, Jean-Marie implored. Do not harm him, I beg of you. It is not his fault that I came. But at this point Simon Lefleur drowned her out in a roar of laughter. Ha ha! He roared, putting his hands on his hips. You would chastise me, eh? Don't try your circus tricks on me. Why, hope o' my thumb, you who ride on a dog's back like a flea, out of this room before I squash you. Begone! Melt, fade away. He paused, expanded his barrel-like chest, puffed out his cheeks, and blew a great breath at the dwarf. Blow away, insect, he bellowed, lest I put my heel on you. M. Jacques Courbet was unmoved by this torrent of abuse. He sat very upright on Saint Eustachia's back, his tiny sword resting on his tiny shoulder. Are you done? He said at last, when the bareback rider had run dry of invectives. Very well, monsieur. Prepare to receive cavalry. He paused for an instant, then added in a high, clear voice, Get him, Saint Eustache. The dog crouched, and at almost the same moment sprang at Simon Lefleur. The bareback rider had no time to avoid him and his tiny rider. Almost instantaneously, the three of them had come to death grips. It was a gory business. Simon Lefleur, strong man as he was bowled over by the dog's unexpected leap. Saint Eustachia's St. Eustatius' clashing jaws closed on his right arm and crushed it to the bone. A moment later, the dwarf, still clinging to his dog's back, thrust the point of his tiny sword into the body of the prostrate bareback rider. Simon Le Fleur struggled valiantly, but to no purpose. Now he felt the fetid breath of the dog fanning his neck, and the wasp-like sting of the dwarf's blade, which this time found a mortal spot. A convulsive tremor shook him, and he rolled over on his back. The circus Romeo was dead. M. Jacques Courbet cleansed his sword on a kerchief of lace, dismounted, and approached Jean-Marie. She was still crouching on the floor, her eyes closed, her head held tightly between both hands. The dwarf touched her imperiously on the broad shoulder which had so often carried him. "Madame," he said, "we now can return home. You must be more careful hereafter, ma foi, for it is an ungentlemanly business cutting the throats of stable boys." She rose to her feet like a large trained animal at the word of command. "Do you wish to be carried?" she said between livid lips. "Ah, that is true, madame," he murmured. "I was forgetting our little wager. Ah, yes. Well, you are to be congratulated, madame. You have covered nearly half the distance." "Nearly half the distance," she repeated in a lifeless voice. "Yes, madame," M. Jacques Courbet continued, "I fancy that you will be quite a docile wife by the time you have done." He paused and then added reflectively, "It is truly remarkable how speedily one can ride the devil out of a woman with spurs." Papa Copo had been spending a convivial evening at the sign of the Wild Boar. As he stepped out into the street, he saw 3 familiar figures preceding him. A tall woman, a tiny man, and a large dog with upstanding. The woman carried the man on her shoulder. The dog trotted at her heels. The circus owner came to a halt and stared after them. His round eyes were full of childish astonishment. "Can it be?" he murmured. "Yes, it is. 3 old friends. And so Jean carries him. Ah, but she should not poke fun at M. Jacques Courbet. He is so sensitive. But alas, they are the kind that are always henpecked."
Alrighty, welcome back. How did you enjoy Spurs? I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, it's in many ways a lot darker than Freaks was. You know, in Freaks, you were presented with the sideshow people as, you know, really showing them as human beings. In Spurs, Jacques is really a bully and just a very nasty sort of person. You know, the only person he has any interest in is Jean-Marie, the trapeze, or the bareback rider that he falls for. In Freaks, it's actually a trapeze artist that the midget character Hans is interested in. The thing is that Jacques in this film, or in this short story, is very much the way that society portrayed people with disabilities, and that, you know, people with you know, birth defects and that. At that time, people who were different, as you know, radically different like that, were often looked at with suspicion or fear. It was very much the same way as it was with Chinese people and colored people and immigrants coming to the United States. They were all looked at as others. And so the thing was that around that time, the only work that these people could find was in carnivals and sideshow, just sideshows. And they would create like little communities there. Everyone was a member of the family, and they would help each other and stuff. And more so, they would protect each other, because people from the outside world could be incredibly cruel to these people. And so, in many ways, Tod Robbins' Jacques is what people would see when they saw a midget person. Someone to be feared, someone that they couldn't trust. And Jean-Marie, she basically represented the views of the outside world. These people were people that you could take advantage of, and you could think down on them. It's funny in this story that she gets drunk and basically tells Jacques pretty much how much she, what she feels about him, and that brings on his need for revenge. That was cool. In comparison, in Freaks, the thing is that Hans marries the trapeze artist Cleopatra, and she just wants his money, and she's slowly poisoning him. And Hans ends up dying, and the members of the circus troupe, the sideshow freaks, they get their revenge on her. They turn her into a freak. In comparison, Jacques is too suspicious, so Jean-Marie can't poison him. She mentions it to the guy that she was really interested in, Simon, that she would have loved to have poisoned Jacques, because after their marriage starts, he's treating her like garbage, giving her his revenge. Well, the thing is that Jacques has a half-wolf dog that he uses in his act. He rides on the back of this wolf dog, and the wolf dog is his guardian and his protector. So she can't, and the thing is also, if she was going to try to poison Jacques, she'd end up poisoning herself, because Jacques would make sure that she sampled the food before feeding him and his dog, which he treated far better than her. But yeah, it's a neat little twist at the end. The fact that he makes her carry him every day and uses spurs on her like she was a horse or something. That was really good. I really enjoyed that part of it. Anyways, to get into some further history on freak show movies and stuff, how Spurs has inspired things. You know, there was a remake of Freaks that came out in 2005. That one, which was called Freak Show, they changed the midget to a full-grown man who had a severe skin condition. And he was the one that was running the carnival. Pretty much the same story as Freaks, except that the woman ends up being turned into the Worm Woman. Then, of course, you know, you have the fact that American Horror Story, I believe it was their 4th season, they did Freak Show, which I thought was fantastic. But it was all about circus freaks and that. And it bears a lot of resemblances to Tod Browning's Freaks. And the person who causes trouble in the story, he ends up being turned into a freak. You know, in that story, what he was doing was he was killing freaks and selling them as oddities and collector's items. Freaky, huh? Anyways, yeah, Spurs is very much like the times that it presented, because in that time, normal people, quote unquote normal people, always had a hatred and suspicion of people who looked different. I mean, it was the same thing with, say, you know, immigrants and that. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, the only way that people could make a livelihood would be to join either, you know, some sideshow, either circus or carnival sideshow. And these people would come in for a community, as a community and stuff. They would help each other. They would feed each other and everything. It was good for these people. I mean, shit, they got to travel and stuff. But then in the 1950s, what ended up happening is that the government made freak shows illegal. Yeah, because these ones kept thinking, oh, look at those poor people look at how they're being taken advantage of and stuff. So the government made it illegal, and all these people ended up out of work. A bunch of them started up a town here in California. It would be a place where carnival workers could spend their winters and stuff. You know, the former freaks would still show their acts. They were all on Social Security at that time. On the dole because they couldn't find work. But anyways, that town was their sanctuary for a long time until I think it was late 1998 when the town started to be taken over by a bunch of yuppies and stuff, and they were moving more yuppies in, and the yuppies were pushing the carnival people out of the town. It was a shame. That's something. Another place that some of the freaks were able to find employment was through Ripley's Believe It or Not. Yeah, the tallest man, he would do demonstrations and stuff at Ripley's Believe It or Not, and tell his story and that, and he made a living off of that. The time of the sideshow was over by that time. They still have sideshows now, but the thing is that the freaks in those are man-made freaks. There are people who have eccentricities, like a friend of mine, Pattison, used to be a sideshow freak. She was a lady who wanted to be a cat. She had herself tattooed from head to toe with, cat markings. She had fake prosthetic whiskers made for herself, and had her cheeks punctured so that she could have her whiskers. Pattison was married for a time to another performer called the Enigma. He was a man who had himself tattooed blue in color and with a pattern around his entire body that were puzzle pieces. And he had himself scarified to make it look like he was made out of these puzzle pieces. Pattison would swallow swords, and the Enigma was a fire swallower and fire spitter. Yeah. So anyways, after she got her divorce and after she got kicked out of her town, Pattison ended up working in a punk rock band, because they accepted her. There's a few people who are well-known freaks that are made freaks. You know, we have the lizard man, who's another one like Tatson. He decided he wanted to be a lizard, so he had lumps put on his body, you know, having little, like, I guess, balls and that put under his skin. He had himself tattooed green and that, and he had his tongue split in half. You've probably seen him on Ripley's Believe It or Not or that. He's been in a few shows. But anyways, recently, midgets have been had a pretty good time of it. You know, you have midgets in movies and stuff, and so they were able to find work. Recently, there was a situation that happened. Amusingly, midget actor Peter Dinklage caused an uproar in the Little People community because he complained in an interview about Disney was casting for its live-action Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so he started such a stink that Disney decided not to use midgets. And there were all these midgets that were up for parts, who were trying to get parts as one of the Seven Dwarfs, and they found out, thanks to dear old Peter, who's a rich man who made his career out of being short, screwed them out of the Seven Dwarfs parts. I don't know how they're going to do Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs without having dwarfs, but whatever. You know, people are fucking nuts nowadays. I don't know. Anyways, so that's my little discussion on Spurs. I know, it would have been better with Mr. Hyland because he's a literary expert. But, I did the best I can. Anyways, that's it. Hopefully I'll find another cool short story audiobook that we can do here on Bloodbath Theater Tales for you. Anyways, and hopefully next time Mr. Hyland will be able to make it. It's always better, if I have him to play off of when I'm doing these. Anyways, as always, keep America strong. Watch horror films. And I will catch you later. Check out your audiobooks, definitely, because they're important.
The secret side of me, I never let you see. I keep it caged, but I can't control it. So stay away from me, the beast is ugly. I feel the rage and I just can't hold it. It's scratching on the walls, in the closet, in the halls. It comes awake and I can't control it. Hiding under the bed, in my body, in my head. Why won't somebody come and save me from this? Make it end. shore. There's no escape for me, it wants my soul, it wants my heart. No one can hear me scream, maybe it's just a dream. Maybe it's inside of me. Stop this monster, I feel it deep within. It's just beneath the skin. I must confess that I
Feel like a monster.
I hate what I've become. The nightmare's just begun. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I feel it deep within. It's just beneath the skin. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I'm gonna lose control. It's something radical. I must confess that I feel like a monster. 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 I feel like a monster.
So we have a containment breach. We lost them. They're out in the open.
Phoenix Comics+Toys. Hello, creeps. Get your one-of-a-kind custom horror host figurines. That's right, kiddies. Oh, you can find hosts like the Keymaster, Mummy and the Monkey. I just love that name. Mr. Lobo, or even Carlos Borloff's Monster Madhouse. Tell him your bony little friend, the Crypt Keeper, sent you. It won't get you a discount, but it might get you killed. Phoenix Comics+Toys.
Ah!